Mount Everest has claimed over 340 lives since the early 1920s, when climbing records began. Of those, around 200 bodies remain on the mountain, preserved by the frigid temperatures and harsh conditions that make recovery a near impossible task. Most deaths happen in the death zone, where oxygen is scarce, about a third of sea level amounts, leading to altitude sickness, exhaustion, or fatal errors. Some have even turned into macabre waypoints for climbers. Green boots, likely Tsawang Paljor from the deadly 1996 storm, lay near a cave on the northeast ridge for years until moved in 2014. Sleeping Beauty, Francis Arsentiev, who summited without oxygen in 1998 and died on her descent, was visible until covered in 2007. Rainbow Valley, near the summit, earns its name from the bright clothing of scattered bodies against the snow, a haunting sight. The wind howled mercilessly across the icy ridges of Mount Everest, carrying with it the echoes of climbers who had dared to challenge its towering heights. Over the decades, many had sought to conquer its summit, but for some, the journey ended in tragedy, their stories forever etched into the mountain's unforgiving slopes. Among them was Tsawang Paljor, known to climbers as Green Boots. In 1996, as part of an Indo-Tibetan border police expedition, he and his team pressed forward despite worsening conditions. The blizzard struck without mercy, and Paljor, along with two others, never returned. For years, his green Koflak boots marked his resting place, a grim reminder to those who followed the same path. 2 years later, in 1998, another haunting tale unfolded. Francis Arsentiev, known as Sleeping Beauty, embarked on an oxygen-free ascent with her husband Sergei. They reached the summit, but exhaustion gripped Francis on the descent. As she lay helpless, other climbers encountered her, but the thin air and brutal conditions left them powerless to save her. Her final words, "Don't leave me," lingered in the cold air. Sergei, in a desperate attempt to rescue her, vanished into the abyss. His body was found a year later, while Francis remained on the mountain for nearly a decade before she was finally taken down. Yet Everest's mysteries stretch back even further. In 1924, George Mallory and Andrew Irvine disappeared into the clouds, perhaps the first to reach the summit before perishing. Their fate remained unknown for decades, until 1999 when Mallory's body was discovered, his frozen form still gripping the mountainside. Whether he stood atop Everest before his fall remains a question lost to time. In 2024, Irvine's remains were reportedly found, perhaps carrying the long-sought answer. The mountain claimed not just the ambitious, but also the experienced. Scott Fisher, a seasoned mountaineer, led an expedition in the infamous 1996 disaster. Stricken by altitude sickness and exhaustion, he could go no further. The storm sealed his fate, and his body was left to rest in the icy winds. Even those who descended close to safety sometimes met a cruel end. In 2006, David Sharp attempted a solo climb, but collapsed near the infamous Green Boots cave. As he lay there, over 40 climbers passed him, some unaware he was still alive, others unwilling or unable to help. His fate ignited fierce debates about the ethics of Everest climbing. The mountain was indifferent to gender, experience, or preparation. In 1979, Hannelore Schmatz became the first woman to perish on Everest. She had summited successfully, but exhausted, chose to bivouac on the descent. The cold claimed her as she sat against her backpack, her hair fluttering in the wind, her lifeless eyes staring into the abyss. For years, she remained a spectral presence on the slopes until the mountain finally took her away. Some, like Rob Hall, chose to face death with unwavering loyalty. In the same 1996 storm that took Fisher's life, Hall stayed behind with his ailing client, Doug Hansen, refusing to leave him. As the storm raged, his voice crackled over a satellite phone, whispering a final farewell to his wife. "Sleep well, my sweetheart. Please don't worry too much." He never left the mountain. Even in modern times, Everest continued to demand sacrifices. In 2012, Shreya Shah Chlorfine, an inexperienced climber, stood atop the world, but she had spent too much time reaching her dream. Running out of oxygen on the descent, she collapsed near the balcony and never rose again. Yet among the fallen were legends as well. Babu Chiri Sherpa was no ordinary climber. He was a force of nature. The Nepalese mountaineer shattered records, spending 21 hours on the summit without supplemental oxygen. Everest was his domain, and he climbed it 11 times. But in 2001, even he was not immune to its dangers. Near Camp 2, he fell into a crevasse, vanishing into the ice. His death sent shockwaves through the climbing world, proving that even the strongest among them could be claimed by the mountain. On April 25, 2015, a massive 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck Nepal, triggering an avalanche that tore through Everest Base Camp with catastrophic force. Climbers and Sherpas had been preparing for their ascents when a deafening roar filled the air, and an unstoppable wall of ice and rock thundered down upon them. The avalanche obliterated tents, buried equipment, and crushed anyone in its path. A total of 22 people lost their lives, making it the single deadliest day in Everest's history. Among the victims were experienced climbers and local Sherpas who had spent their lives guiding others safely up the mountain. Everest, a symbol of human ambition and endurance, had once again reminded the world of its power, unpredictable, merciless, and utterly indifferent to those who dared to challenge it. The wind continues to whisper their names. Their stories, etched in ice and rock, serve as both warnings and inspirations to those who follow. Everest remains unmoved, towering above the world, a silent witness to the triumphs and tragedies of those who dare to reach for its summit. Subscribe if you want to see more.